Captain Taewon Kim stood tall in his crisp blue uniform as the doors to the Galactic Council chamber slid open. The room was huge, with a high ceiling that seemed to disappear into darkness. Seats rose in rows like a bowl, filled with aliens, of all shapes and sizes. Some had too many eyes. Some had no eyes at all. Some looked almost human, while others resembled nothing from Earth's history books. In the center was a round platform where Taiwan would stand. He took a deep breath and walked forward, his boots making soft sounds on the polished floor. This was not his first time speaking to the council, but today was different. Today, he carried the future of humanity on his shoulders. Captain Taewon, Kim of Earth, announced a voice that seemed to come from everywhere at once. You may address the council. Taewon stepped onto the platform. A soft blue light shone down on him, making his metal pins gleam. Honored members of the Galactic Council, he began, his voice steady despite the knot in his stomach. I come to speak on behalf of humanity regarding the Arms Limitation Treaty. The treaty was a big deal. It would ban all firearms and projectile weapons in space. No guns, no missiles, nothing that shot bullets or similar objects. The older alien races claimed this would make space safer for everyone. But Taiwan knew better. At the highest tier of seats sat the Aldarians. They looked almost human, except for their silver skin and eyes that shifted colors like oil on water. They were the ones pushing hardest for the treaty. Taewon looked directly at their leader, Ambassador Nex. As requested, Earth has reviewed the final terms, Taewon said. After much discussion, we are prepared to sign. A murmur rippled through the chamber. Many had expected Earth to refuse. Humans were new to space travel, having only joined the galactic community 50 Earth years ago. They were known for their military history and their love of weapons. Some alien races called them the apes who shot their way to the stars. Ambassador Nex leaned forward. This is unexpected, Captain. Your species has always been resistant to arms control. Taewon kept his face blank. We recognize the benefits of safer trade routes and reduced chances of accidents. We will comply with all rules against firearms and projectile weapons. What he didn't say was that the treaty was deeply unfair. The Aldarians, with their advanced energy shields, were immune to bullets and missiles anyway. Their own weapons, which shot beams of energy rather than physical objects, were not banned by the treaty. The ban mostly hurt younger races like humans who relied on primitive but effective projectile technology. Very well, said Nex, clearly pleased. The treaty will take effect in one standard galactic cycle. All species must turn in or destroy banned weapons by that time. Taewon bowed slightly. Understood. As he walked out of the chamber, Taewon knew many eyes were on him. Some aliens were surprised. Others were suspicious. Few believed humans would give up their beloved guns so easily. Back on his ship, the UES Dauntless, Taewon headed straight to the conference room. His senior officers were waiting, faces serious. Well? Asked Commander Sang, his second-in-command. Did they accept our surrender? Taewon removed his formal cap and set it on the table. They did, and it's not a surrender. Lieutenant Jisoo, Park, the weapons officer, couldn't hold back her frustration. It might as well be. They've basically disarmed us while keeping their fancy energy weapons. How are we supposed to defend our colonies now? The treaty bans firearms and projectile weapons, Taewon said, taking a seat at the head of the table. A small smile appeared on his face. It doesn't ban human creativity. Engineer Dae-jung looked up from his tablet. I've been studying the exact wording of the treaty. There are possibilities. Explain, Taewon said. Dae-jung tapped his screen, and a hologram appeared over the table showing the treaty text. The ban covers, and I quote, all weapons that use explosions, compressed gas, or electromagnetic acceleration to propel solid projectiles. It also bans any device primarily designed to fire multiple projectiles in rapid succession. So no. Guns, no railguns, no coil guns, no missile launchers, Jisoo said with a frown. That's everything we use. Not everything, Taewon corrected. The treaty doesn't ban melee weapons like swords or axes. It doesn't ban bows or crossbows. It doesn't even ban thrown weapons like spears or knives. Commander Sang looked dubious. Are you suggesting we fight space battles with swords and bows? Against enemies with energy weapons? I'm suggesting we study our history, Taewon replied. Humans fought wars for thousands of years before inventing gunpowder. We've always been good at finding ways to kill each other. Jisu's eyes widened as she caught on. And it doesn't ban new inventions, as long as they don't use the banned propulsion methods. Exactly, Taewon nodded. The Eldarians think they've outsmarted us. They think without guns we're harmless. They've forgotten that necessity is the mother of invention, and humans are very good at invention. Daejung was already scribbling notes. I could design a bow that uses carbon nanotubes for the string and limbs. In space, with no air resistance, arrows could travel incredibly far, and with modern materials, they could pierce most standard armor. What about swords? Jisoo asked, warming to the idea. We could make them from advanced alloys, maybe even add vibration technology to increase cutting power. Now you're thinking like humans, Taewon said with a genuine smile. I want design teams working on this immediately. We have 1 galactic cycle, about 3 Earth months to prepare. Commander Sang still looked concerned. The Admiral won't like this. Fleet Command expected us to negotiate exemptions, not give in. We're not giving in, Taewon said firmly. We're adapting. It's what humans do best. I'll speak to the Admiral, myself. 2 days later, Taewon stood in Admiral Yoon's office on Luna Base. The Admiral was a stern woman with gray hair cut short. Her office window looked out over the gray lunar landscape, Earth glowing blue and white in the black sky. You did what? The Admiral asked, her voice dangerously quiet. Taewon handed her a tablet. I agreed to the treaty, ma'am, but I have a plan. Admiral Yoon scanned the document, her frown deepening. Then she paused, reading more carefully. Slowly, her expression changed. You want to create a special research division to develop alternative combat systems? She read aloud. Yes, ma'am. The treaty has specific limitations, but also many gaps. My engineers have already started designing weapons that comply with the letter of the law while maintaining our combat effectiveness. The Admiral set down the tablet. You realize the Aldarians intended this treaty to weaken humanity's position, right? They fear our military potential. That's exactly why we should sign, ma'am, Taewon said. Let them think they've won. Let them think we're weakened. Meanwhile, we'll be developing an entirely new generation of weapons. Admiral Yoon was silent for a long moment, staring out at the Earth. Finally, she turned back to Taewon. You're proposing we fight a potential future war with weapons from our ancient past, she said. With respect, Admiral, I'm proposing we fight with weapons inspired by our past but built with our present technology. The Aldarians and other elder races think they know humans. They think they know what we're capable of. They're wrong. The HFY Admiral picked up the tablet again, scrolling through the proposals. Rocket-assisted throwing spears, guided arrows with maneuvering thrusters, plasma-edged battle axes. This is either brilliant or insane, Captain. Sometimes those are the Same thing, ma'am. To Taewon's relief, the Admiral laughed. Fine. You have my authorization to establish your research station. I'm assigning you the asteroid facility in Mars orbit. You'll have funding and personnel, but I expect results, Captain. You'll have them, ma'am. We're calling it Project Archimedes. After the ancient inventor? The Admiral asked. Yes, ma'am. He once said, give me a lever long enough and a fulcrum on which to place it, and I shall move the world. The Aldarians have given us our lever, this treaty. Now we just need to use it to move the galaxy. As Taewon left the Admiral's office, his communicator beeped. It was a message from Daejung. Design team assembled, ready when you are. Taewon smiled. The aliens thought they had banned human weapons. Instead, they had only challenged human ingenuity. And that was something that should never be underestimated. 3 months passed quickly. The asteroid that would become Research Station Archimedes hung in space between Earth and Mars. Once just a chunk of rock, it was now buzzing with activity. Inside, long tunnels connected large open chambers carved from the stone. In the main workshop, engineer Subin Choi watched her team at work. Some bent over tables covered with blueprints. Others tested materials at lab stations. The sound of hammering and welding filled the air. Subin was 35 years old with short black hair and quick eyes that missed nothing. Captain Taewon had put her in charge of Project Archimedes because of her mix of engineering skill and historical knowledge. Before joining the fleet, she had studied ancient weapons as a hobby. "How is the bow testing going?" Subin asked, walking up to a tall man working at a testing range set up along one wall. Engineer Jun looked up. "See for yourself." He picked up what looked like a bow, but unlike anything made in ancient times. The limbs were black carbon nanotubes formed into perfect curves. The string was so thin, it was almost invisible. Jun set an arrow, also black, made of composite materials, and drew back the string. He aimed at a target 50 meters away, then released. The arrow flew straight and true. It hit the target, a plate of standard ship armor, and punched a clean hole through it. Subin nodded, pleased. "And that's in air, in space, with no resistance. It could travel for kilometers before losing significant speed," Jun finished. "And the arrow design can be modified to carry different payloads, explosive tips, acid, even small guidance systems." "Good. Keep refining it." Subin moved on through the workshop, checking on other projects. In one corner, a woman named Mina was testing a sword. But this was no ordinary blade. Made of a special metal alloy, the edge was only a few molecules thick. More importantly, it vibrated at high frequency, allowing it to slice through materials much harder than itself. "How does it handle?" Subin asked. Mina swung the sword in a smooth arc. "Balance is perfect. The power cell lasts 8 hours at full vibration. I've added a small magnetic field generator in the hilt, too." "What for?" Mina grinned. "So it returns to your hand if you throw it, like those old movies." Subin smiled despite herself. "Practical and dramatic, I like it." The next station was even more interesting. A burly man named Juan was working on what looked like a spear, but with small thrusters attached to its shaft. "Is that what I think it is?" Subin asked. Juan nodded. "A rocket-assisted throwing spear. The treaty bans weapons that use explosions to fire projectiles. But it doesn't ban projectiles that activate their own propulsion after being thrown." He demonstrated by throwing the spear at a low setting. When it was halfway to the target, the thrusters fired, doubling its speed instantly. The spear buried itself deep in the target block. "Once it's in vacuum, the thrusters will be much more effective," Juan explained. "We're also working on versions with guidance systems. Throw it in the general direction, and it finds its own way to the target." Subin made notes on her tablet. "Excellent work. What about the shield project?" Juan led her to another station where a team was working on large, curved shields made of reflective material. "The concept is simple," he said. "In space, sunlight is intense with no atmosphere to filter it. These shields can focus that light into a beam hot enough to cut through metal. Technically, they're just tools using natural solar radiation, not weapons at all. And perfectly legal under the treaty," Subin added. "I want a full test in space conditions next week." As she continued her rounds, Subin felt a glow of pride. In just 3 months, her team had developed over 20 different weapon systems, none of which violated the treaty. Some were based on ancient designs but built with modern materials. Others were completely new ideas that simply avoided the banned propulsion methods. A chime sounded, indicating a visitor had arrived at the station's dock. Subin checked her tablet and saw it was Admiral Yoon, coming for her first inspection. Admiral Yoon was not a woman who smiled easily. She strode through the workshop with hands clasped behind her back, eyes sharp as she examined each project. Captain Taewon walked beside her, occasionally explaining a detail. "This all looks very medieval, Captain," the Admiral said, watching. "A demonstration of a pneumatic harpoon launcher. It used compressed air, stored, not explosively created, to fire large metal spikes." "With respect, Admiral, it's not medieval at all," Taewon replied. "These are modern weapons built with the latest technology. They simply use physical principles that predate firearms. The Admiral picked up a throwing disc with razor-sharp edges. And these comply with the treaty? Completely, Subin said, joining them. That's a smart disc. It has tiny gyroscopes and thrusters that activate after you throw it. It can change direction mid-flight to hit targets around corners or behind cover. Impressive, Admiral Yoon admitted, setting down the disc carefully. But can these weapons truly match energy weapons in combat? Subin nodded to a nearby engineer who brought over a small device. This might answer your question, Admiral. We call it a shield disruptor. The device was about the size of a fist, with a dish-shaped emitter on one end. The Aldarians rely on their energy shields, Subin explained. Those shields operate on specific frequencies. This device emits focused sound waves that disrupt those frequencies. The Admiral's eyebrows rose. Sound waves? In space? It doesn't use air as a medium, Subin clarified. It generates the waves in a short-range field projection. When aimed at an Aldarian shield, it causes the energy pattern to destabilize. The shield still exists, but it becomes porous. Admiral Yoon smiled for the first time. And then your arrows and spears can penetrate it. Exactly, Captain Tae-wan said. We've also developed armor that can resist most energy weapons by dispersing and redirecting the energy. The Admiral took a slow walk around the main workshop, observing the various teams at work. Engineers were developing everything from modern warhammers to gravity slings that could hurl rocks with devastating force in zero-G. And training? She asked. These weapons require different skills than standard firearms. We've started a training program, Tae-wan answered. Many of our soldiers have taken up ancient martial arts as a hobby. Some already have experience with bows or swords. We're developing new fighting styles specifically for space combat with these weapons. Subin added, space actually makes many of these weapons more effective. No gravity to pull arrows down. No air resistance to slow projectiles. And in close quarters like shipboarding actions, swords and axes have always been effective. Admiral Yoon stopped before a display of battle armor. Unlike standard fleet armor, this set was clearly designed for close combat. It had reinforced joints, built-in weapon mounts, and a helmet with enhanced visibility. You've thought of everything, she said, more to herself than to Tae-wan or Subin. We're human, Admiral, Tae-wan said simply. It's what we do. We adapt. The Admiral turned to face them both. Her expression was serious. I'll be honest, Captain. When you first proposed this project, I thought it was a desperate move. A way to save face while we figured out how to negotiate exemptions to the treaty. Subin and Tae-wan exchanged glances. But this... The Admiral gestured around the workshop. This is not desperation. This is innovation. The Aldarians and other elder races think they know humans. They think we're just violent apes who discovered space travel too soon. They're wrong, Subin said firmly. Yes, Admiral Yoon agreed. They've studied our history of war, but they've missed our history of creativity, of finding ways to solve problems no one else could solve. She picked up a tungsten carbide warhammer designed for zero-G combat. Though made of modern materials, its design would have been recognizable to a Viking warrior from ancient Earth. They think they've hobbled us, the Admiral said, testing the hammer's weight. But they've only forced us back to basics, and humans have always been good at the basics. She set down the hammer and faced Captain Tae-wan. You have my full support, Captain. I'll increase your funding and personnel. If the elder races want to underestimate humanity, that's their mistake. We'll be ready when they realize it. As the Admiral departed for her ship, Subin turned to Tae-wan. So we continue? Tae-wan nodded, looking around at the workshop humming with activity. We continue. The treaty takes effect next week. After that, all human ships will be officially disarmed according to galactic records. While actually carrying more weapons than before, Subin said with a small smile. Exactly. Let's just hope we don't have to use them anytime soon. Neither of them knew how wrong that hope would prove to be. 6 months after the Arms Limitation Treaty took effect, the galaxy seemed peaceful. Human ships, officially classified as minimally armed in galactic records, traveled the trade routes without incident. Each ship carried a small complement of energy weapons permitted under the treaty, and nothing that could be identified as a projectile weapon, but hidden in storage compartments marked as maintenance equipment and cultural artifacts. Every human vessel carried a full set of the new weapons from Station Archimedes. The UES Thermopylae was one such ship. Though registered as a diplomatic vessel, it was in truth a heavy cruiser with a crew of 200. Captain Hyon Lee stood on the bridge, watching the stars through the main viewport. He was a tall man, with a calm face that hid a sharp mind. "Status. Report," he said to his bridge crew. "All systems normal, Captain," replied the officer at the operations console. "We're on schedule to reach the Proxima Centauri outpost in 6 hours." Hyon nodded. Proxima Centauri was home to a small Aldarian research station. The Thermopylae was delivering supplies and carrying a human diplomat for trade talks. A routine mission. "Captain," called the communications officer suddenly, "I'm picking up a distress signal. It's from the Aldarian outpost." Hyon turned sharply. "Put it on screen." The main display flickered, showing an Aldarian with silver skin and shifting eyes. The background was filled with smoke and alarms could be heard. "This is Research Station Proxima," the Aldarian said, voice tight with fear. "We are under attack by Kryvax vessels. Our defenses are failing. We request immediate assistance from any Allied ships in range." The message repeated itself. It was automated, set to loop until help arrived. "Kryvax?" asked the first officer, Jun-ho. "I've never heard of them. They're from the Outer Rim," Hyon explained. "A predatory species that raids outlying settlements. The Galactic Council declared them pirates last year." "How far are we from the outpost?" Hyon asked the navigation officer. 1 hour at maximum. "Speed, sir." Hyon didn't hesitate. "Set course for the Aldarian station, maximum speed, sound battle stations." As alarms rang through the ship, Jun-ho stepped closer to the captain. "Sir, we're officially a diplomatic vessel. We're not supposed to engage in combat. The treaty requires all allied species to respond to distress calls," Hyon replied. "We're just following protocol." He smiled slightly. "Besides, this might be a good opportunity to test our new equipment in real conditions." Jun-ho nodded, understanding. "I'll alert the weapon teams." 50 minutes later, the Thermopylae dropped out of faster-than-light travel near the Aldarian station. The sight that greeted them was grim. 3 Kryvax ships, shaped like dark blades, surrounded the station. Their weapons, energy-based, but designed to cut rather than burn, sliced into the station's outer hull. The Aldarian defense ships tried to fight back. They fired energy beams at the Kryvax vessels, but the beams seemed to dissipate against the Kryvax hulls. "Analysis," Hyon ordered. The science officer studied her readings. "The Kryvax ships have specialized armor. It's designed to absorb and dissipate energy weapons. The Aldarian defenses are almost useless against it." Hyon watched as a Kryvax beam cut clean through an Aldarian ship, splitting it in 2. The Aldarians were being slaughtered. "Open a channel to the Aldarian commander," he ordered. A moment later, an Aldarian face appeared on screen. It was Ambassador Nex, whom Captain Tae-wan had met at the treaty signing. He looked shocked to see a human ship. "Captain Lee, what is a human diplomatic vessel doing here?" "Responding to your distress call, Ambassador. We're here to help." Nex looked both desperate and doubtful. "We appreciate the gesture, Captain, but what can you do? The Kryvax ships are impervious to our weapons. Their armor absorbs energy and grows stronger from it. And since the treaty, you don't have projectile weapons that might penetrate their hulls." Hyon smiled. "Don't worry about our capabilities, Ambassador. Just keep your ships back and give us room to work." He closed the channel before Nex could reply. "Sir," said Jun-ho, "the Kryvax have noticed us. 2 ships are breaking off from the station to intercept." Hyon stood. "Perfect. Signal all hands. Prepare for close combat. Launch the aero squadrons." Outside the Thermopylae, bay doors opened. What emerged were not the fighter ships the Kryvax expected, but something much stranger. 20 humans in specialized spacesuits flew out, each carrying what looked like a large metal bow. Thrusters on their suits allowed them to maneuver in vacuum. They called themselves archers, and they had trained for this moment for months. The lead archer was Sergeant Han. As his squad formed up, he spoke into his helmet comm. "Remember your training. No atmosphere, no gravity, no drag. Arrows will fly true to target. Aim for their weapon mounts and engine exhausts." The Kryvax ships grew larger in his visor. They were firing energy weapons now, but the archers were small targets, and their suits had reflective coatings designed to scatter energy beams. "Range is good," Han said. "Knock arrows." Each archer placed a meter-long metal shaft against their bow. These weren't simple arrows. They were made of dense composite materials with monomolecular tips that could pierce most armor. Some had explosive heads. Others carried EMP generators to disable electronics. Draw. 20 bows bent, the carbon nanotube strings pulling back with tremendous force. Loose. 20 arrows shot forward in perfect silence. In the vacuum of space, they traveled much faster than they would have in atmosphere. The Kryvax, expecting energy weapons, were unprepared for physical projectiles. 19 arrows struck their targets, punching through the armor that had been designed to resist energy, not kinetic impacts. "Second volley," Han ordered. "Fire at will." The archers continued their assault, sending arrow after arrow into the Kryvax ships. Small explosions bloomed where the special warheads detonated. Meanwhile, the Thermopylae itself moved closer to the third Kryvax ship. From its sides, more bay doors opened. What came out this time were humans in heavy armor suits, each carrying what looked like a circular shield. "Solar Knights deploy formation," ordered their commander over the comm. The Knights positioned themselves in a curve, their reflective shields angled to catch the light from Proxima Centauri. Each shield focused that light, combining with others, to create a concentrated beam of natural solar radiation. The beam struck the Kryvax ship, heating its hull to melting point. Inside the Thermopylae, Captain Hyun watched the battle on his screens. The Kryvax were confused by these strange tactics. They had expected energy weapons, not arrows and focused sunlight. "The lead Kryvax ship is damaged but still operational," reported Jun-ho. "They're trying to retreat." "Not yet," Hyun said. "Prepare boarding teams. I want that ship captured." The boarding teams gathered in the launch bay. 50 soldiers in specialized combat armor, each carrying weapons that would have been familiar to warriors from Earth's ancient past, but with very modern improvements. Min-ho Kang stood at the front, a carbon fiber halberd in his hands. The weapon, 2 meters long, had a powered head that could punch through ship hull material. Min-ho was a weapons master who had studied ancient Korean martial arts before joining the fleet. "Remember," he told his team, "the Kryvax aren't expecting hand-to-hand combat. Their ships are designed for long-range battles. Stay close, stay fast, and use their confusion against them." The bay doors opened, revealing the damaged Kryvax ship floating just 50 meters away. Thrusters on their armor suits carried the boarding team across the gap. Magnetic clamps on their boots allowed them to land on the Kryvax hull. Min-ho activated his halberd. The blade began to vibrate at high frequency. "Cutting team, make us a door," he ordered. 3 soldiers stepped forward. They carried circular devices which they attached to the hull. The devices activated, creating a field that weakened molecular bonds. Min-ho drove his halberd into the center. The blade sank in, and with a twist, he cut a circle in the hull large, enough for his team to enter. Inside, the Kryvax were in chaos. They were tall reptilian beings with scales that shifted color to match their surroundings. Their eyes, adapted for darkness, were blinded by the sudden light from the breach. Min-ho led the charge, his halberd slicing through the air. The weapon's reach kept the Kryvax at a distance, preventing them from using their natural claws. Behind him came soldiers with short swords and axes, vibroblades cutting through Kryvax armor with ease. Others carried modern crossbows that fired darts tipped with fast-acting sedatives. The Kryvax fought back with energy pistols, but in the narrow corridors of their own ship, they couldn't bring their main weapons to bear. The human boarding team, trained for close quarters, had the advantage. "To the bridge," Minho called, following the ship schematics displayed inside his helmet. Room by room, corridor by corridor, they pushed forward. The Krivaks fell back, unprepared for this style of combat. In the centuries since they had joined the galactic community, no one had ever boarded one of their ships. Outside, the Aero squadrons had disabled the second Krivak ship, and the Solar Knights had forced the third to retreat. The battle was turning in humanity's favor. On the bridge of the Thermopylae, Captain Hyun allowed himself a small smile. "Send a message to the Aldarian commander," he told his communications officer. "Tell him the situation is under control." As the Aldarian faces appeared on screen, their expressions showed not just real. Minho Kang moved through the Krivak ship like water flowing around rocks. His halberd spun in practiced patterns, its carbon fiber shaft light in his hands despite its size. The blade hummed as it cut through the air. Behind him, 20 soldiers followed in tight formation, their own weapons ready. The corridors were narrow and dark, lit only by strips of red light along the floor. The air smelled strange, like metal and something sweet. Minho's helmet filtered it, keeping his head clear. "Command, this is boarding team Alpha," Minho said into his comm. "We're approaching the bridge. Resistance is moderate." "Understood, Alpha," came Captain Hyun's voice. "Status of the other teams?" "Team Beta has secured the engine room. Team Gamma is clearing the lower decks. We have control of about 60% of the ship." 2 Krivak soldiers appeared around a corner ahead. They fired energy pistols, but Minho was already moving. He dropped to one knee, letting the energy beams pass over his head. Then he thrust his halberd forward, the blade extended on a telescoping shaft, catching the first Krivaks in the chest. Minho twisted the weapon, activating its vibration function. The blade cut through the alien's armor like it was paper. The second Krivaks tried to retreat, but a soldier next to Minho raised a small crossbow and fired. The dart hit the alien in the neck and it dropped to the floor unconscious. "Clear," Minho said, standing up again. "Bridge is just ahead." The door to the bridge was sealed, a thick metal barrier blocking their way. Minho stepped back, giving space to the team's engineer. "Can you open it?" he asked. The engineer placed a small device against the door. "This is a molecular disruption field. It should weaken the door enough for a physical breach." The device activated, creating a softly glowing circle on the metal surface. Minho signaled to 2 soldiers carrying a battering ram, another ancient weapon but made with modern materials and fitted with impact amplifiers. "On my mark," Minho said. 3, 2, 1. Now. The soldiers charged forward. The ram hit the center of the glowing circle, and with a screech of tearing metal, the door gave way. Minho led the charge through the opening, halberd raised. The Krivak's bridge was a dome-shaped room with control stations arranged in a circle. In the center stood the Krivak's commander, taller than the others, with black scales that reflected the red light. It held what looked like a ceremonial sword made of dark metal. "Humans," the commander hissed, its forked tongue flicking out. "Fighting with primitive weapons. Have you no shame?" Minho stepped forward, keeping his halberd ready. "These primitive weapons seem to be working just fine. Surrender your ship." The Krivak's commander laughed, a sound like grinding stones. "You may have surprised us this time, but the Krivak's empire has 1,000 ships. We will adapt to your tactics, and then we will crush you like all the others." Minho didn't waste time arguing. He signaled to his team and they spread out, surrounding the bridge crew. The Krivak's officers remained at their stations, watching with cold eyes. "Your choice," Minho said to the commander. "Surrender and live, or resist and die." The commander's answer was swift. It lunged forward, sword slashing toward Minho's head. Minho parried with his halberd's shaft, then spun the weapon, bringing the blade around in a sweeping arc. The Krivaks jumped back, avoiding the cut. They circled each other while Minho's team kept the other Krivaks at bay. The commander was fast, its movements fluid and practiced. It had clearly trained with its sword for many years. But Minho had trained too. Since the treaty, he had spent countless hours relearning the ancient Korean martial arts his grandfather had taught him as a child. The halberd was an extension of his body now, as natural as an arm or leg. The commander attacked again, a flurry of strikes that drove Minho back. One cut slipped past his guard, scraping against his armor. The special alloy held, but Minho felt the impact. He needed to end this quickly. His team had other sections of the ship to secure. Minho changed his stance, shifting his weight to his back foot. He held the halberd vertically, presenting a smaller target. The Krivak's commander saw what looked like a defensive posture and pressed its attack, sword raised high. This was what Minho had been waiting for. As the commander stepped forward, Minho dropped to one knee and thrust the halberd low, catching the Krivak's in the leg. The blade cut deep, and the commander stumbled. Before it could recover, Minho spun the halberd and brought the heavy counterweight at the bottom of the shaft up in a powerful strike to the commander's chin. The Krivak's dropped to the floor, unconscious. Minho stood, breathing hard. He looked around the bridge. The other Krivak's, seeing their leader defeated, lowered their weapons. "Secure them," Minho ordered his team. "Then access their computer systems. I want to know what they were after at the Eldarian station." Outside the Krivak's ship, the battle continued. The archers had moved to the second Krivak's vessel, their arrows disabling weapon mounts and communication arrays. Leading them, Sergeant Hahn coordinated their efforts with precise commands. "Focus fire on the engine exhausts," he ordered. "If we can breach the cooling systems, their reactors will have to shut down." The archers released another volley, the arrows trailing thin lines of vapor as trace elements in their composition burned away in the vacuum. They struck their targets with pinpoint accuracy, penetrating deep into the Krivak's ship's systems. Meanwhile, the Solar Knights had formed a new configuration. Their reflective shields now created multiple smaller beams, targeting the third Krivak's ship's weapon mounts. Where the beams touched, metal glowed red, then white, then began to melt. On the Thermopylae, bridge, Captain Hyun received updates from all teams. "Sir," his communications officer reported, "the Eldarians are hailing us again." Hyun nodded. "Put them through." Ambassador Nex appeared on screen. His color-shifting eyes were wide with what might have been awe or fear. "Captain," Nex said, We've never seen combat like this. The Krivak's have raided our outer colonies for years. Their armor makes them nearly immune to our weapons. Yet what did you call them? Legacy weapons?" "That's right," Hyun said calmly. "Designs from Earth's past built with modern materials. They're devastatingly effective," Nex admitted. "I must ask, why did humanity agree to the arms limitation treaty if you had these alternatives?" Hyun allowed himself a small smile. "We didn't have them then, Ambassador. We developed them because of the treaty." Nex was silent for a moment. "I see," he said finally. "The Council may have miscalculated." "It appears so," Hyun agreed. "Now, if you'll excuse me, we have a battle to finish." As the screen went dark, Hyun turned to his first officer. "Status of the enemy ships?" "The first is captured. Teams report they have control of the bridge and engine room. The second is disabled, with boarding teams moving in now. The third is attempting to retreat." Hyun considered this. "Allow the third to escape. Let them carry the message back to their leaders." "What message, sir?" Hyun looked out the viewport, where human warriors in spacesuits fired arrows and wielded halberds against the stars. "That humans fight differently," he said simply, "and that taking away our guns only made us more dangerous." 3 weeks after the battle at Proxima Centauri, Captain Taewon Kim stood once again in the Galactic Council chamber. This time he was not alone. Captain Hyun Lee stood beside him, along with engineer Subin Choi and weapons master Min-ho Kang. They had been called to explain humanity's actions and their unusual weapons. Taewon felt the eyes of the council members on them. Some looked curious, others seemed worried. The Eldarians, in their high seats, looked most troubled of. All Ambassador Nex spoke first. "Captain Kim, we have reviewed the reports from the Proxima Centauri incident. The Council thanks humanity for their assistance against the Krivak's threat. There was a murmur of agreement from many members, though not all. However, Nex continued, his voice growing harder. We must address the matter of these legacy weapons your people have developed. They appear to violate the spirit, if not the letter, of the Arms Limitation Treaty. Taiwan stepped forward. With respect, Ambassador, they do not violate the treaty in any way. The treaty banned firearms and projectile weapons that use explosives, compressed gas or electromagnetic acceleration to propel projectiles. None of our new weapons use those methods. A technicality, huffed a representative of the Voral, a jellyfish-like species floating in a tank of blue liquid. You found loopholes in the treaty. We adapted to the treaty, Taiwan corrected, just as any species would. Nex leaned forward. These adaptations of yours, bows that fire arrows through ship hulls, swords that cut through armor, shields that focus sunlight into cutting beams, they are every bit as deadly as the weapons we banned. Yes, Taiwan agreed simply. They are. His direct answer seemed to surprise the council. Taiwan continued, his voice calm but firm. The Krivaks have been raiding outposts along the rim for years. Their armor makes them nearly immune to energy. Weapons, yet human legacy weapons defeated them in a single battle. Subin stepped forward, holding up a data tablet. We've prepared a technical briefing on the weapons we used and why they were effective against the Krivaks. Their armor is designed to absorb and dissipate energy, but it has no special resistance to physical impacts. Minho added, in the eye, close quarters of ship-to-ship combat, swords and halberds are often more effective than ranged weapons anyway. This is something humans learned in our naval battles thousands of years ago. The council members looked at each other. Some seemed impressed by the humans' ingenuity. Others appeared disturbed. You found ways to make ancient weapons deadlier than ever, said a representative of the Talari, a race of tall, thin beings with 6 fingers on each hand. We've applied modern materials science to ancient designs, Subin corrected. The principles remain the same. Ambassador Nex stood. The point remains that these weapons, legacy or otherwise, make humanity a significant military power once again. This is precisely what the treaty was designed to prevent. Now Captain Hyon stepped forward. Is it? Was the treaty truly designed for safety in space? Or was it designed to weaken humanity specifically? A hush fell over the chamber. Nex's color-shifting eyes flared bright for a moment. That is a serious accusation, Captain, he said. It is an observation, Hyon replied. The treaty banned the weapons humans excel at making, while allowing the energy weapons that Aldarians and other elder races prefer. It was never truly about safety, it was about control. Nex started to object, but Taiwan raised his hand. The past is the past, he said. What matters now is that we demonstrated something important at Proxima Centauri. Humans think differently. We approach problems from angles others might not consider. This can be valuable to the galactic community. Taiwan reached into a case. He had brought and pulled out an ancient book bound in leather. He placed it on the small table before him. This is a book called The Art of War by a human general named Sun Tzu. It was written over 2,000 years ago, yet many of its principles still apply today. He opened the book to a marked page and read, "To win 100 victories in Tide or 100 battles is not the highest skill. To subdue the enemy without fighting is the highest skill." Taiwan closed the book and looked up at the council. Humans have been fighting each other for thousands of years. We've become very good at it, but we've also learned that the best victories come through cooperation, not conflict. He straightened his back, standing tall before the council. Humanity accepts the Arms Limitation Treaty as written. We will continue to abide by its exact terms, but we will also continue to adapt and innovate within those terms. This is not defiance, this is human nature. The council chamber was silent for a long moment. Then Nex spoke, his voice quieter than before. What exactly are you proposing, Captain Kim? A new partnership, Taiwan said. The Krivaks were defeated because they faced something they did not expect and could not counter. But they will adapt. They will return with new tactics, new armor. He gestured to his companions. Humans can train other species in our combat methods. We can share our legacy weapon designs. In return, we ask for fair access to energy weapon technology, which the treaty currently limits. Nex looked troubled. You want us to help make humanity even more dangerous? No. Taewon shook his head. I want to make the galaxy safer for everyone. No single species has all the answers. Together we can protect each other better than we can alone. The debate went on for hours. Some council members supported the human proposal. Others opposed it fiercely. In the end, a compromise was reached. A trial period of cooperation between human defense forces and the Aldarian fleet, with knowledge sharing under strict oversight. As they left the council chamber, Jisoo Park, who had been watching from the gallery, joined the human delegation. Do you think they'll ever understand? She asked Taewon quietly. Do you think they'll ever see that taking away our guns only made us more dangerous? Taewon looked back at the chamber doors closing behind them. Some already do. The rest will learn, in time. Learn what? Asked Jisoo. What every human child knows from history, Taewon said with a small smile. That necessity is the mother of invention, and humans are very, very good at finding creative solutions to difficult problems. As they walked toward their ship, Taewon thought about the future. The galaxy was vast, filled with dangers and opportunities. The Arms Limitation Treaty had been meant to hold humanity back, to keep them in check while they were still new to the stars. Instead, it had reminded humans of their roots, of the strength and ingenuity that had carried them through thousands of years of struggle on Earth. It had forced them to reach back into their past to secure their future. In the end, the treaty hadn't weakened humanity at all. It had made them stronger than ever, and now the galaxy would have to adjust to that new reality.